in the dying light of a plague-stricken Venice, buried beneath centuries of mud and myth, archaeologists uncovered something no one expected. A skeleton, jaw wrenched open, a crumbling brick stuffed between her teeth. Not a metaphor, not a myth. A real woman, laid to rest in a mass grave and treated like a monster. In the 16th century, Venice was drowning in more than just disease. It was drowning in superstition. And when the living couldn't explain the plague, they blamed the dead. What followed was a ritual of fear. Corpses exhumed, mouths broken, and vampires made from memory. But as the dust settled and her bones were studied, one question lingered. Who was she really? And why did they try to silence her in death? Drawn from plague chronicles, forensic evidence, and the whispered terrors of a dying city, this is the true horror buried beneath Venice, the woman they called the Venetian Vampire.
They found her buried with a brick shoved between her teeth because they thought she'd eat the dead. This isn't a myth. This is a real crime scene from centuries ago. In this episode of Horror Unfold, we're diving into the disturbing case of the so-called Venetian Vampire, an unearthed skeleton, a mouth sealed shut with a brick, and a city gripped by plague and paranoia. This isn't about Dracula. This is a true story based on real bones, real history, and real fear. Stick around, because the deeper we dig, the darker it gets. In 2006, archaeologists were digging through a mass plague grave on the island of Lazzaretto Nuovo, just off the coast of Venice. They expected bones. But what they didn't expect was this one skeleton, a woman, mid-60s, dressed like a poor peasant, but her mouth wedged wide open with a thick brick, not delicately placed, forced between her jaws, like a violent message frozen in time. Why would someone do that? Because in the 16th century, Venetians believed in vampires. In the 1500s, Venice was ravaged by the plague, again and again. As bodies piled up, rumors spread. The plague wasn't just a disease, it was being fed by the dead. People believed some corpses weren't staying dead. They whispered of shroud eaters, vampires who would chew through their burial shrouds and spread pestilence from beyond the grave. These weren't elegant, fanged aristocrats. These were bloated, rotting, half-decomposed peasants with blood at the corners of their mouths and no peace in death. Signs of a vampire? A corpse that hadn't decomposed fast enough. Blood around the mouth, which happens naturally after death. A chewed-up burial shroud, thanks to gas buildup and bacteria. But to them, it was proof, and they knew just how to stop it. Medieval anti-vampire practices were brutal. If someone was suspected of being a vampire, after death, people exhumed them, staked the body, burned the corpse, beheaded it, and sometimes forced bricks into the mouth to stop the chewing. The woman in Venice, she was the first known archaeological evidence of this belief in Italy. Not folklore, not legend, evidence. She was buried with others, but treated differently, singled out, feared. Her vampire status wasn't based on who she was in life, but what she might have become in death. The skeleton was analyzed by forensic anthropologist Matteo Borini. She was around 60 to 70 years old. Poor diet, signs of physical labor, probably a lower-class servant or peasant. But something about her death, or her corpse, must have terrified the others. Maybe she died late in the plague and was buried last. Maybe her face looked fresh too long. Maybe someone dreamed of her. Venice at the time was full of fear and superstition. They weren't just fighting rats and disease. They were fighting the dead. And in a place where logic failed, ritual took over. That brick wasn't just a deterrent, it was a message. Stay dead, don't chew, don't rise, don't feed. And now, centuries later, she's risen again, not from the grave, but from the soil of forgotten horror history. She wasn't a vampire, but people believed she could become one. And that belief was deadly. The Venetian Vampire isn't just a creepy story, it's real. A dark chapter from the plague, years when fear of death turned into fear of the dead. Her bones tell the story of how belief, twisted by fear, can turn a victim into a monster.